Welcome to the Jamaica Basketball Project. This is episode number 20. I can't believe it's been 20 already. And appreciate you tuning in live here on the live stream. And I also appreciate those that watch again on the replay. The great thing about tuning in live is that we can interact and you can ask questions. And I got a great guy for you to ask questions of tonight. His name is Kentan Facey, and he is a pro basketball player who many of you know from his days at the University of Connecticut. And we're going to welcome him in right away here. If I can click on his face, Mr. Facey. How you doing, man?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. I meant to mention a couple other things before we get into it here, and I start grilling you here with questions, but we've also added a live Periscope live stream to this, which is cool for the first time tonight. So if any of you watch it on Periscope, let me know how that looks. And then we'll also be podcasting these on iTunes and Spotify and Google Podcasts. They don't go out live, but after they're recorded, we'll get them posted and get them up there. So that's pretty cool. How you doing, man? Are you holding up okay during all this craziness? You got to stay indoors.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Got back from France maybe 2 months ago. Just back in Connecticut, hanging out with family. So everything seems to be fine right now. Just trying to wait for everything to be open up again. So
yeah, what's the deal? Are you able to work out at all? I mean, do you have a place that is distanced, I guess, or do you have anything nearby? Or are you kind of shut in?
So right now, everything is shut down. The gyms that I usually go to workout, those are shut down for now. But I have a driveway. I have a hoop in the driveway, big garage. I have a few things in the garage. So I have a weight room and a little area to get some shots up. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, good. So you were over in France when this happened. What was that like? What did you guys were obviously you were in the middle of the season. Did they kind of postpone things and you were in a holding pattern and then you got out of there, or how did that all go down?
Right. So while we were midway, well, a little bit over midway for the season, this pandemic kind of hit. And at that point they were postponing everything for like 2-week periods. So every 2 weeks, they would probably give us an update on what was about to happen. But it got to a point where it was being drawn out, and I kind of felt that things were going to get canceled eventually. So I decided to get out of there while I still could.
Yeah. How was the experience in France? That's not your first pro team. Was that an upgrade in leagues for you, or how was that going?
So I started out in first division, Greece, coming straight out of college. That was a good experience. The competition was really, really good. We have a few EuroLeague teams, Olympiacos, and those teams that we competed against. Then I went to Cyprus for my second year. Competition wasn't as great, but then moved back up to France, which was much better competition and all that stuff. So it's a little bit more professional in France than in the other two countries that I've been in. So that was always a step up in that department.
Yeah, I coached in China for a season over in the Chinese Basketball Association, and It was just a crazy experience. We had an owner that he'd sit on the bench and he'd lose his temper. He'd throw water bottles. He took a swing at one of our Chinese players at halftime.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, have you run into any crazy owners in your short professional career?
Well, so far, I've been blessed where I haven't been exposed to that side of it yet. My past owner, he would come to practice, shoot around with us after practice, probably bet money from half court. So the atmosphere, as far as the relationship between players and the presidents and owners went for my last experience was really good. So by far the best I've had so far.
Yeah, that's good. Are you gonna are you set up to go back once this thing's over, or have they postponed the season indefinitely, or
right? So they've postponed the season indefinitely for now. I think eventually they'll get to the point where they'll cancel it. I'm just speculating. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that plays out over the next few days or maybe a week or so.
So are you essentially back as a free agent then?
Yeah, essentially. I spoke to my agent today, actually trying to go over that stuff, trying to figure out the next move.
Yeah. So as we go up here, I don't want you to get overly distracted, but there's people that are in commenting and saying hi, and you're going to know some of them, and some of them.
I know pretty much all of them.
Yeah, that's good.
So far.
Yeah, and so we'll take questions as well, and so things started for you obviously in Jamaica, and just kind of we've had a few players on over the last couple of weeks, and there's been a consistent theme of late bloomers in the game. You know, guys that came to it kind of late. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing in Jamaica as far as basketball goes.
Okay, so as far as basketball goes in Jamaica, pretty much all the guys, one thing we have in common, we started out late, probably around 14, 15. That's the age where a lot of us late bloomers, I guess, start out. So we've been pretty much playing catch up. I saw the episode last where Vashil was talking about the same thing. You get to the States and it's pretty much trying to catch up to all those guys that's been playing since they were 3, 4. I go to a guy in Long Island to work out, and I see babies in there starting to work on their handles, starting to learn the fundamentals of the game. So that's an advantage that kids here have, and I think it's starting to trickle down in Jamaica somewhat. When I first started in Jamaica, I started out at Knox College. Shout out to Mr. Watson and my Knox family. He's the one that introduced me to the game. At that point, I was about 6'5", probably 150 pounds, if that, and started out there. So Mr. Watson took me under his wings and kind of started teaching me the game.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Kenton. Hold on a second. Are you talking about this Mr. Watson?
Mr. Watson, how are things going? How you doing?
Merry Christmas, son.
Oh yeah, Merry Christmas, man.
Coach Watson, tell me
what. Good to see you, Mr. Watson.
What was this guy like when he was 14, 15 years old?
Tall and lanky.
Yeah, just like any other regular kid, just didn't know what he had at the moment. Was only using his height to go to school, go to class, and just walking by and just having fun.
What was it, Kenton? This guy we have here, he's a legendary coach in Jamaica, and he's had a lot of success in the face of being the underdog a lot. I know he's taken his teams to Kingston and played against some major powers over the years.
I remember those trips.
Yeah. So tell me about this guy as a coach and some of the things you were able to take away from your experience with Coach Watson.
The main thing I was able to take away from Coach Watson is to always stay in shape, man. If it's one thing that you will be, is in shape with Coach Watson, because starting in the summer, we'd have camps and we wake up 5 a.m. in the morning. I could still hear the phone, that Nokia, that black and white Nokia alarm going off somewhere. Gives me nightmares still, but you know, it was go time. We would wake up super early. We would go for runs, miles, come back. So we would always be the team in the best shape. So I've always tried to keep that in my game now. But starting out, I couldn't catch when I first started. I couldn't make a layup. So it took some time to get to the point where I could contribute on a team and be part of the team where I could help the team win. So essentially, Mr. Watson introduced me to the game and got me to a point where I could get some recognition, and then eventually got a chance to leave Jamaica to pursue a better education and then eventually start a career.
Coach, I got to imagine that, you know, being the skinny, lanky, new to the game kid that this young man was back then, you had no idea about the player that he would blossom into, to go on and win a national championship in the U.S. at the Division I level, and then go on to be a professional athlete playing basketball. I mean, you got to be incredibly proud of what you've seen out of this guy.
Hey, good night, everyone. Yes, I'm very proud of where Kenton is just now, because if we go back to where we started from, I didn't know that he would be here right now. I wasn't even thinking of him becoming a professional. I was thinking that, okay, here is a tall guy. Why is he walking past the basketball court and not stopping? And another teacher of mine introduced me to him, Mr. Gunter from Knox. Say, hey, coach, I'm sending somebody to you to play some basketball. The boy tall, so more if you teach him how to play basketball. So I saw him and I asked him if he wanted to play some basketball. And he said, sure. And I said, okay, go up, change, and come back. And lo and behold, he went up, changed, got back on the court. And in Jamaica, we have a saying, we call you LBW, long, big, and worthless. Yeah, so he was that. He was a coordinator at the first outdoor. But the thing that he was very committed, very disciplined, easy to get along with. We are doing hills, we are doing running, we are doing anything. I could always ask Kenton and the other guys to do 1 extra, 2 extra. And he was very disciplined. I think that is one of the biggest things now that is driving him to where he is now. Very disciplined from an early age. And he was eager to learn the game. And we have seen a transition. It is now, he's still very young. Well, very old in basketball, but a very young man. And hard work and dedication. If he keeps working hard, I mean, he can only make more mistakes, and the more mistakes he makes, is the closer he will get to success.
Yeah, Coach, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've had the influence on so many young men going through your program, and as a instructor and as a coach. It's guys like Kenton are kind of the reason you do it, isn't it? It's you go through all the trials and tribulations with these young people, and then to see them develop and turn into great adults. That's kind of what keeps you going, isn't it?
Well, that is part of the ideal of being an instructor, a teacher, a coach, a motivator, somebody to always be there for the young guys. I mean, I can just segue away from Kenton a bit. I remember a young guy who came to Knox, and he was giving all ends of trouble at school. And somebody decided to bring him to basketball. And the day he ended up at basketball, he didn't give any more trouble. No more suspension, no more detention, until he graduated. So this is sort of the joy that comes out of the of instructing these young men, get them to be very disciplined about basketball. And basketball is life. So once you're disciplined in the way you play, that is the same discipline you will take in your life. And I'm very proud of the entire group. I mean, that group from 2005 to 2010, 11, thereabout, Kenton was a part of that group, and some of them in the chat room was a part of that group. I'm very proud of them. They have left the program, and they're making strides in their life.
So before I let you go, and I appreciate you jumping on here and saying hi to Kenton, but before I let you go, just give me an update. What's going on in your area with hoops right now, and some of the young players, and how are things looking moving forward once we get past this whole pandemic thing? How are things looking in Manchester and Knox and everything that you have your fingers in from a basketball standpoint?
Oh, because I was just about to say, what is going on now is COVID. You see, the work is never done. You just have to continue to spot the talent, and everybody won't make it to Kenton stage of playing basketball. Everybody won't make it there. But once you can change that one guy, once you can change that one guy's life to make it into something positive, I will stay around a little bit longer to try that. I will stay around a little bit longer to see more of these young men make good of their lives, because that is the only thing we can do now as instructors, to make sure that we are saving more of the male population. When I look around in my class, most of the time, 500 females, 2 males, and the females keep on talking about the males are dying species. That really hurt me. So the more of these young men I can save, or the other coaches in Central can save, then I'm proud of that, and we'll continue to do that, because the future need men. The future need men that can stand up to their responsibility. And myself and the other coaches in the Central region, that is what we are doing just now. That every school, every region have the different things that they're working on. And what we try to do at Knox is to start from the high school to the college, to the professional league, to what we call it NBL in Jamaica, the National Basketball League in Jamaica. So I want to have that model up and running, or continue to send out more Kenton, continue to send out more Michaels and more Dr. Rees into the world, because guess what? We are streamlining to make sure that, hey, at the end of the day, if you don't make it to the professional league, you must have life after basketball.
So true. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate you hopping on. Kenton, anything you want to say to Coach before we let him go?
I mean, while we have him here, just the journey isn't done, finished, completed in a sense. So right now I would like to say thank you for all that you've done so far, and helping me, helping a lot of other players. You talking about that class that I was a part of, we have a bunch of guys from there who are teachers, doctors, everyone's in different fields. So without that start that we got to instill that discipline, and at the time, it probably was the worst thing to hear go run 15 laps around the farm, but that kind of instilled something in us that we still have to this day. So we appreciate that. I'm sure all the other guys watching now, Marlon, Michael, Delano, everyone watching, could echo the same sentiment. So we really appreciate it, and that really laid the foundation for us to have the discipline after school, going out into the real world.
Cool. Thanks, Coach, for doing this. I appreciate it, man.
And thanks, Coach Turner, for bringing me on. And Kenton, the sky's still the limit, so you continue reaching for the stars, and whatsoever comes your way, remember, grab it with both hands, and remember, you're going to feel your way to success. And I want to leave with you, live full, die empty. So go out there, son, and make a mark in your world, right?
Awesome.
All the best.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care.
All right.
What a guy, huh? Awesome.
Oh, that was pretty cool. I had no idea you had him lined up like that.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea that he was going to be so great like that either. What a blessing to have a mentor like that.
Right.
So okay, so we kind of get the Jamaica part of your basketball career. How did you end up getting to the States? And tell me about that, because you weren't college basketball ready when you left.
Oh, I was in high school basketball already in Jamaica.
Tell me about that, man.
So from Knox, I ended up going to Mr. Watson suggested going to this Star Search basketball camp at GC Foster College, which they host every year. I think it's put on by the Jamaica Basketball Development. Mm-hmm. And it was at that camp where I met, at the time, kind of like my mentor. At this point in my life now, he's kind of like a father figure, like that uncle you go to get advice, Steve Johnson. Mm-hmm. He's the one that helped me to get out of Jamaica and get to high school in Long Island. So he kind of sourced the scholarship over there for me. And then it was about 2 years in the making. The first year I went, he was trying to help me, but that fell through. And then the following year, he wasn't at the camp, but he had a friend that was there that got in touch with me. And then from that point, we started organizing. And then that scholarship offer turned up in Long Island for high school, which is what I took, and then got out of Jamaica for that.
Yeah. And something, either the light bulb went on or the switch was flipped, because you end up being a guy who just hardly coordinated, as you said, or as coach mentioned, to being the New York Gatorade Player of the Year after just a couple of years. So something must have clicked for you when you were up in New York.
So for me, that was just a lot of repetition. Uncle Steve and a guy called Kareem Miminger, he is big on the AAU circuit, a lot of fall, summer basketball. He had me on his AAU teams ever since I got over here, to the States. So we were playing a lot of summer league basketball, AAU, travel basketball. So coming over and going, they call it just throwing me right into the fire. Yeah. You had no choice but to get better. So coming over, playing catch up. I said something one time back in an interview that I could barely catch when I came from Jamaica. It wasn't in a sense that I didn't know how to catch the ball. It was just the speed of the game was completely different. Mm-hmm. The guards were fast, so they weren't look like when I was playing back home. You have to call my name, look at me, pass me the ball, then I'll catch it. But here they come down, they don't look at you, they just pass the ball, and you got to go get it. So there was definitely a transition period for me, and playing a lot in the summer and those fall leagues, ISA, kind of helped me to get better over time.
You remember a specific time where it clicked for you and you thought, I'm good at this. I'm a good basketball player. Like, people better watch out for me.
So I started out at Upper Room. I had a decent year at Upper Room. Then I transferred over to Long Island Lutheran, which is now like a top 25 powerhouse high school in the nation. Mm-hmm. It was maybe my junior year. I got a chance to attend Amari Stoudemire Skills Academy and LeBron Skills Academy that summer. And I was going up against a lot of highly touted guys at the time, like Julius Randle, and those guys were all around at those camps. And I was able to hang with them. I was competing with them. I was all on my own against those guys. So it kind of gave me that confidence coming back to high school that I could go against anyone, and I'm definitely developing as a player.
Was it UConn right away, or was there a mix of schools that you were seriously considering, or did you fall in love with the Huskies right from the bat? How did that whole recruiting process go?
So when I first got here, I had no idea about Division I, college basketball, any of that stuff. So my host family, the Browns, they took me in. I'm still a part of their family now, even more so now than back then. They took me in, and my brothers, one of my brothers in particular, Christian, he plays basketball, and we would always watch games together. And it was that year, the year I came to New York, that UConn, Kemba, and then won the championship. So we were watching those games, and from that point, I kind of started paying more attention to UConn and developed that love over time.
So, obviously one of the blue blood programs of college basketball, and you get there your freshman year, you guys step in right away. It didn't take you any time, and you win a national championship.
Man, that was all credit to our coaching staff and the group of guys we had on that team. We had great leaders in Shabazz Napier, guys like Ryan Boatwright, DeAndre Daniels, Niels Giffey. Those guys were all seniors except for maybe two or so of them. And they really set the standard, the culture for the team for that year. And that it paid off in the end. From the first day of practice, we walked in, the intensity level, focus, all that. Everything was there from that day, and we went out and won that championship that year.
There's a question I wanted to try to find on here. It was just someone asking where you were playing now, and we talked about that at the beginning. I put the question up, but I can't find it. But you're currently playing in France, so
right.
I want to get that question answered. And then here's another question for you. When was the first time you dunked in a game? That's kind of a big deal for any kid.
So we in Jamaica, I went to a boarding school. We would always after school try to dunk volleyball, basketball, anything like that. But the first time I dunked in a game, that's hard to remember. We were probably playing Glenmuir High School, and I think Dario passed me the ball and on a fast break, and I dunked it. I think that was probably the first time I dunked in the game.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys win the national championship. I got to ask you about this. This is kind of a cool picture, right?
Right. Yep.
You guys get to visit the White House, and it's also, you'll notice, or people will notice in this picture, you already know this, but you're there with the women's team. It was only the second time, I think, in NCAA history that
Yep. And that was 2011 and our year.
Yeah, that both the men and the women won the national championship from the same school. So you guys get to visit the White House. Tell me what's that experience like? Like, do you just go in there, get your picture taken, and you're done, or do you get to sit around and talk up the president, or what are you doing?
Right. So it was like an entire day. This is just the pictures is just what gets out to the media, really. So we get there, we go through security and everything. We get a tour of the White House, and then president comes around. Everyone gets a chance to speak with him, shake hands, take a couple pictures. Then they pretty much just give us like a history lesson. We talk, walk around, and then we get to the podium where they have this press conference type of thing. And then we take a few more pictures. After that, we get something to eat, hang out for a little bit more, and then that was the conclusion of that visit. But it was a really great experience for me. I know at the time my dad was around. He was extremely proud for me being able to leave Jamaica and get to that stage where nobody ever imagined anyone from my family getting to meet the president of the United States. So that was a big deal for me and for my family.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up your dad, and I know you lost your dad when you were in college, and you guys were close, and he never had a chance to come up and see you play. And that must have been just kind of a devastating experience for you when you're away from home and something like that happens. And I know the two of you were really close.
Right. Unfortunately, he never got a chance to see me play, but in the early years in Jamaica, he would sacrifice to make sure I had everything that I needed, from school to basketball. It would drop me off for camps in the summertime. He was always working, so he couldn't really stick around to watch, but he was always there to provide the things I needed, sneakers, gear, everything that I needed. So he was a big part in me falling in love with basketball and getting that opportunity. He sacrificed to make sure I had my flight, ticket, everything. Like, he took care of everything, so I had no worries. I just had to work on my game and get better.
Yeah, that's great. So Rashane has a question for you. He wants to know if you remember when you tried to get him to go to Knox.
Knox was up and coming, man. So we were trying to recruit good players. So I probably reached out to try to get players that I thought were pretty good or had the potential to be good players.
What's the deal with Trelawney now? Like, there's another decent athlete that comes from Trelawney.
Oh, decent.
What's in the water up there?
Man, Kevin Durant came out with a documentary saying there's something in the water in DC that has great basketball players emerging from that area. I don't know if it's in the water in Trelawney or Yellow Yam or something, but there's something over there. He produced a lot of great athletes. I know Usain Bolt.
Did you see Bolt when you were a kid? He must have been.
Growing up, I did track and field.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did track, so I was pretty good at track. That's why I had no idea I was going to play basketball. I was doing track. We had a track meet at William Knibb High School. This is where he went to high school. And while at the track meet, I saw he was probably about 17 at the time or so. I saw him in a group of guys. That's probably the closest I ever got to meeting him during that stage of his life. I've seen him since that, but that was probably the first time I met him or saw him in person.
Well, he obviously wasn't the Usain Bolt that he is now. Back
he was
then.
On his way.
But was there an aura and a thing about him back when he was 17 years old? Was he huge locally?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw him around. There was a group of probably 50 people around him, and they were just sitting down. He was in the middle just talking. So you could tell that was somebody from back then.
Yeah, that's funny. Here's another question for you from Glenroy Jenkins. What one word of advice would you give coach developing players, and one word for players trying to play at a high level? You don't have to do one word.
So,
yeah, you don't have to do one word.
Coach developing players. So I think for coaches, it's really important to be honest with young players, help them develop the right habits early. If you have a guy who, you have a guy who hasn't developed the bad habits yet, you're lucky. So you're able to teach them the proper habits to develop over time. And as far as young players trying to get to a higher level, I'd say you just have to put the work in. The earlier you start, the better it is, but it's still possible to start late and still make it to a higher level as far as college and maybe afterwards. But the main thing I would say is to stay consistent with what you're doing. Even now during this pandemic, players are working out. Players are finding ways to work out. So you just have to stay committed to what you're doing and try to find ways to constantly work on your game.
Yeah, you bring something up, and I know that resources aren't the greatest in Jamaica right now. And there's people all over the states watching this, and then there's people in Jamaica. So it's kind of a mix of audience here. But you're fortunate when you're at a place like UConn. You have the best facilities, you have the best coaching, you have the best training, and so you're able to. I would imagine you really got a sense for the commitment to get in the weight room and what that means, and how would you speak to a young Jamaican that may not have access to the same type of equipment, but the necessity to get bigger and get stronger and to be more physical, that you don't realize it.
I was there not too long ago, and one thing Uncle Steve always stressed was you have to do your push-ups. So you start with basic stuff. Even in some of the bigger programs, they stick to a lot of basic workouts, that body weight stuff. Mm-hmm. You're able to do push-ups. You could do a bunch of push-ups, sit-ups, get your core stronger, squats. You don't need a lot of weights to do stuff like that. So you just have to be committed. And the era we live in now, you have access to the internet. You could go on YouTube and find body weight exercises, programs like that. So it's up to you to go out there and find information that you need, because we definitely have ways to access that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you saw Vashil a couple of days ago, and I asked him a question about just kind of what his thoughts were about trying to move Jamaica basketball forward. I'm going to play for you what he said, and then I'm going to ask you for your thoughts.
Okay. I think one of the biggest things is just getting everybody to buy into having that goal of we need to develop the sports as one, not as everybody feeling like they need their own slice of the pie. Yes, everybody wants that, but if we do that together, it's going to make a bigger impression than if everybody is trying to do their own thing.
What are your thoughts about what he said? And I guess, can you piggyback your own comments on how we can push this program forward and get it prominent like we all know it can be?
Right. So I definitely agree with what Vashil said. You feel like there's some disconnect in certain areas with guys not being on the same page. I feel like if we all have a common goal, which is to help kids further themselves academically, professionally, as far as through using basketball as a tool, everyone needs to come together if it's really about the kids and helping people move forward. I think that for the guys that are overseas who have probably experienced a higher level or a higher exposure to certain, let's say, coach and competition, it's on us to kind of give back to the younger players, to the organization, to try to move it forward. Whether it's going back in the summer, trying to help out at the various camps we have, jump ball, star search, whatever it is, whatever you have that you could give to a younger player to afford them a better opportunity than we had, it's something that we could always use to move the program forward.
Yeah. What about, here's another question. What advice would you give a player whose team lost every match their first season let me just ask it in kind of a different way. When you're used to winning, as you were at UConn, and then you find yourself going to a team with not maybe the same sort of success, what do you do to try to stay motivated and overcome the negative thoughts?
That's just giving you an opportunity to become a better leader. You go out there and you show your teammates, look, the way you overcome these adversities is to go out there and work as hard as you can every day. You have to give it your best shot to be able to compete, not even to win, to compete. You have to give it your best shot. So you have to go out there and show them the right way to work, to prepare, to make sure that you're in a position to at least compete. And once you compete, the results are 50-50.
Yeah. That's the easy thing, right? When everything's going good and you're winning and everyone's scoring, right. Everyone's eating.
Yeah, everything's good.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, but keeping that attitude when things aren't going well, that's the mark between, like you said, someone with leadership qualities and someone that ultimately, you can win with, because definitely that losing is not easy. Let me ask you this. So if the opportunity, have you played with the national team at all yet to this point?
No, it was always something I was always interested in doing.
Yeah.
But the fact that most summers going back to college, I was always in summer school, stuff like that. And then afterwards going to play overseas, you stay away for 10 months, you come back home, you try to get your body right, try to prepare again for the next season. But that's something that I'm interested in doing.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because it's not every person that gets to put on the uniform to represent their country. Talk about what that would mean for someone like you.
Right. At the end of the day, regardless of what level you're playing, to come back home to your country, to your people, and to be able to represent your country, that's a huge honor. I don't care how developed the program is, how advanced the facilities or anything like that. If you're representing your country, that's something you take pride in.
Tell me about your game a little bit. I'm going to click on some highlights here. Give me a second. Okay. And this is, I guess, from last year.
Yeah, this was in Cyprus.
Hold on a second. Let me get rid of that music. There we go.
All right. Yep.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your game and how it's developed since you've left UConn.
So I was always pretty athletic, mostly utilized in pick and rolls, stuff like that. The mid post, high post area, because I'm still a bit agile or quicker than most big men that I face. So I'm able to face up more and step out, get by a bigger guy that's smaller than me. I'm able to post up and be effective that way. So I could kind of play from now. I'm trying to develop my 3-point shot, which is something I've been working on for the past couple summers, and that's been trending in the right direction. So I'm looking to add that into my game and be more consistent with that. But for now, I'm most effective in the pick and roll going downhill or the pick and pop face up game.
Yeah. How's your handle? Because
most of these are.
I thought I saw you handling a little bit in some of these highlights. How's your handle right now?
That's something I've been working on for years now. It's just what's required from various teams. You don't have to do as much. You don't need to. My role on the team is to rebound for the time being, rebound, block shots. When I get the ball in the post or the pick and roll, to execute from that position. But I've been working on handling the basketball better just to become a more complete player.
Is it one of those things where in the off season every year you kind of pick one thing and try to work on that, or what is your workout routine like? Are you doing the same stuff you were doing back in high school, or how has that evolved?
No, that's definitely changed, because now you have to figure out what situations you're going into. You have to understand what your coaches are asking you to do. If you're going to a team where your coach and the team requires you to be a great rebounder, I wouldn't suggest you spend all your time trying to shoot threes. I mean, you have to focus on what your niche is and what's going to get you paid, essentially, because in high school, everyone is trying to figure out their game. But when you get to a certain point, you have to know what you're good at, and you have to use that to try to put food on the table, essentially.
Yeah. Here's another question from someone you might know. Who's your main motivator?
My family, man. Definitely my family. The way I grew up, the way my family was brought up, we all stick together. We're all pretty close, but life has never been easy for us. And for me to have an opportunity to do something I love and get paid doing that, that's definitely what drives me most.
So someone else asks, I have a feeling this never happened to you, so you probably don't know. What happens when you get your ankles broke? Do you get embarrassed?
Hey, when you play long enough, when you play at a high enough level, you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get crossed. You're gonna get dunked on. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't let it get in your head for the rest of the game, you'll be fine. You get crossed. If you could play it off, you play it off. If you can't, you just get back. That's it.
Yeah. If you
get them back on the defensive end. You punch the shot the next time. You try to dunk on them. If it's for a big man, I'm gonna try to dunk and you block your shots in the crowd. But a guard, you try to get him back. That's all it is. It's a game. Once you play long enough, you're gonna get caught.
If you haven't got dunked on, you haven't played, right?
You haven't tried to block a shot. You haven't played enough.
Okay. This one's for me. Hi, Robin. Superstitions. Are you one of these guys? You have to put your left sock on first, then your right sock, and tie your shoe a certain way, or eat a certain meal before games. What do you have any of those?
My fiance would probably say that, but I doubt I would say that. I mean, on game days, I have a routine. I don't think I'm that superstitious. I'm a little stitious, not superstitious.
Yeah. You're an Office fan too, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned your fiance. Is she in France with you when you're there, or are you there by yourself?
She was with me as this past season. This is probably the first season that she was with me.
That's got to be great.
Definitely. You have a familiar face. You have someone to explore with. Someone in the stands cheering for you and all that stuff. So that's a great experience to have her with me.
Do we have a date yet for a wedding date?
Yeah, we're looking at July 3rd of next year, if everything goes back to normal.
It will. Fingers crossed, right?
Right.
Cool. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's great to come on and talk, and it was great to see Mr. Watson on here.
Yeah, that's cool too. And wish you great success. Let's stay in touch, and let's hope we get past this thing shortly, and great things ahead for you, and great things ahead for Jamaica basketball, right?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I hope you and your family make it through this pandemic safely. I mean, there's not much we could do right now, but keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. So
you as well. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Man. Yep. Kenton Faci, what a great guy. And we also want to thank Coach Watson for coming on earlier as well. It was a lot of fun, and fantastic young player for Jamaica. He's got a great story, and he's one of many great stories that we're trying to highlight here on the Jamaica Basketball Project. So stick with this, tell friends about it, spread the word. We're trying to get subscribers and trying to get views, and the more we get, at some point, maybe YouTube or one of these will start giving some money to the program, which is what we want to do. So appreciate you tuning in. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, thank you very much. If you want to get on the live stream and interact with our guests, you can do that. Anxious to see how our first Periscope episode went. And in the next day or so, I will get this posted up on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And so keep following us. And as I said, tell your friends, spread the word. And until next time, probably Friday, keep your eyes open. We'll let you know. Appreciate you hanging out with us. See ya.